The first, most important, skip it and you're doomed step to becoming a sexpert. Human beings are funny creatures. We'll chortle over whether to swallow or not swallow and turn that disastrous attempt at a new intercourse position into dinner party fodder. But when it comes to the most innocent, basic sexual act of all, we're about as likely to fess up as the guy in the corner suffering silently from an attack of piles. We might well be the most sexually uninhibited generation so far, but masturbation, particularly female masturbation, still has a dirty name. Even my friends, used to me blurting out all sorts of bizarre sex statistics, aren't comfortable with it. What do you do to break the boredom of sitting behind a computer for hours on end? A girlfriend asked me recently, during lunch with a group of friends. Drink coffee mostly, I answered. Oh, and I masturbate. It's a little treat that breaks up the day and perks me up no end. There was a deathly silence. Knives and forks paused mid-air. Someone choked on a mouthful of wine. "Excuse me?" My friend spluttered, redder than the beetroot on her plate. "I said I take masturbation breaks," I repeated lamely, and even I started to feel a tad embarrassed. The fact is, although everybody does it, and if they don't, they should, few admit it and no one discusses it freely. Masturbation remains one of the few sex subjects that can make the most liberated person blush. The same girl who'll cheerfully masturbate when she's between partners feels guilty if she continues when she's getting regular sex. Lots still view masturbation as something you do when you can't get any, fearing that if they're reduced to masturbating, they're not sexually desirable enough to score the real thing. In reality, the more sexually active you are, the more likely you are to masturbate, regardless of whether you do or don't have a partner. Kinsey, the world's best-known sex expert, found people who masturbated early in life led more vigorous sex lives than those who didn't, and continued having an active sex life long past when the average person stopped. This is one area where men come up trumps. Most women masturbate about once a week, often not doing it regularly until their late teens. Most men masturbate at least twice as often, and started doing so around 12 or 13 years of age. Of the women who have discovered its joys, virtually all can masturbate to orgasm, 95% of us in fact, and some researchers put that figure even higher. On the opposite side, if you're a female who has never masturbated, statistics indicate it's quite likely you've never had an orgasm in your life. Pretty strong support for solo sex. The truth is, good girls do it, and if you never have, and won't try, give up now on ever having a fulfilling sex life. Masturbation is a sure way, often the only way, to discover what turns you on sexually, and unless you know how to excite yourself, you've got zero chance of telling your partner how to. Few of us are lucky enough to start our sexual lives with a lover who's so patient and skilled he can teach us about our own body. Besides, masturbating is good for you. It releases tension, frees inhibitions, is gloriously liberating, and beats the hell out of counting sheep if you've ever had trouble dropping off. Convinced but have no idea how it's done? It takes a brave person, and a few million drinks, to ask even your closest friend to tell you stroke by stroke how to do it. Luckily, you don't need to. In this chapter, you'll find no nonsense, no holds barred, practical information on everything you ever wanted and needed to know about solo sex. Scott, 18, student, says, "You don't talk about it. The most you'll say to your mates is, 'I went home and had a wank.' But you always say it jokingly so they don't really know if it's true. Not once has another guy ever turned to me and said, 'How do you do it?' If he did, I'd probably think he was gay." Tim, 32, a sales representative, says, "The first time I masturbated, I was riddled with guilt. I'd heard horrible things about it, that it was socially unacceptable, something you shouldn't do, it was dirty and messy. The general impression was only dirty old men wank. I now consider masturbating extremely healthy, but while no one now denies doing it, no one really wants to admit it either. My fantasies usually revolve around the person I'm with. I'll deliberately watch her face and her movements while we're making love. Then I replay them as I masturbate. I relive the sensations and try to copy the same technique she used on me to add reality. I love going down on her, and most of my fantasies revolve around giving her oral sex. Sometimes I'll catch myself moving my tongue as I'm masturbating. I'm so far into the fantasy." A biology lesson they didn't give you at school. Sex is an acquired skill, and you need to do your homework to become an expert. You'll never master the guitar without finding out where to put your fingers to play a note, and sex is no different. You need to know some basic anatomy.